Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Optitex stand-up meeting question and answer session. Bill Richards here again with Josh Scott and Sabrina Cove, going through some questions that have been posted in the last 24 hours from the Optitex community. Sabrina, what do we got for Josh today?
Hey, Josh. So our first question talks about the preferences menu and how it can be a little overwhelming at times since there are so many options to customize. What are the important settings to adjust to get the most out of my 2D interface?
Thanks, Sabrina. It's a great question, and I know the preferences can be really overwhelming for users, especially when they first start using the software. Let's take a look at what I think are some of the best ones. So I'm going to open up my preferences by going to Tools and Preferences. And you can see over here on the left-hand side, the preferences are all organized by folder. So if I click on a folder, it opens the preferences, etc. One of the things we actually just came out with too is the searchable field. So this is an excellent thing for if you're trying to find something specific, like let's say working units, which is a really important one to change right when you get started. So if I start typing in, you can see that the topics start populating here. So I can say working units in the main. And that's exactly where I would recommend people go first, working units. So for us in the US, we always are working in inches. I know other people are working in centimeters or millimeters. So you just click here on the arrow, choose your working units, and what you want your tolerance to be. So you can go from 1/100th of an inch to 1,000th of an inch. It's really just up to you. And then you want to choose something like decimal format, or you can work in fractions. I really do recommend working in decimals. It's a lot easier to get used to, and you have a lot more control over the work that you do. We have done a lot of changes over the past few releases to try and streamline and make sure that we think the preferences are defaulted to the best preferences. But you know, as the name goes, these are what you want. So it's hard to say exactly what you would need to change. Some of the big ones would be things like colors. So you can go to your colors folder and start playing around with what you want your settings to be. Again, if you have a little time, you can just experiment. So if you want to change, let's say, your filling color, I can change it from blue to purple. And when I apply that, you can see what the setting is. You can leave the preferences window open actually and kind of go through and just see what you like. We do recommend that you either kind of go with a light background and pattern fill and then a dark outline, or the opposite, a dark background and pattern fill and with a light line. It's all kind of, again, how you want the pieces to appear and what your eye is used to. Some of the other things that may vary quite a bit from company to company would be something like a default notch type. So I'm going to go to my notches section. So you can see here by default, whenever you add a notch within the system, it's going to be a T notch. So you can change that to be a V notch or an I notch, which is more like a slit, and then what you want the dimensions of that notch to be. So this can save a little bit of time changing them later on if you know that you're always going to have a 1/4 inch notch of some kind or another. So that's another really good place to look. Other than that, if you have a little bit of time, like some of us do today, maybe you should just go through, look through the preferences one by one. Each one, when you click on it, will give you a brief description of what that preference does. But for the most part, we've tried to set it up so that there's a very minimal change the user needs to make at the beginning to get the most out of the software.
For our next question, can I add a buffer to pieces in PDS and see the resultant marker before I plot or cut something?
This is why I like these stand-up sessions actually, because this is not an obvious question and it's not one that we actually get a lot, but it's a great opportunity that someone is able to ask this. So you can do that. We can add a buffer within PDS. It's much more common for the buffer to get added within the marker system itself, which you can add it there. But I'm going to show you how we can add a buffer to a piece within PDS. So if you take this little square that I've got, I'm going to open up the piece properties, and we do that by double clicking on the piece, and you can see that all the main piece properties are over here. There's a section of the piece property called buffer attributes. If I click on the plus, it'll open up what the buffer is. So it's 0 on this particular file. So I'm going to add a 1/2 inch buffer, and you can choose how the buffer location is. So the most common is going to be all around, which is all around the piece, but you can do the top, the bottom, the left, the right, etc. Once you've done that, I'm going to come over here to where I've created a marker already. You can see that this piece has a predefined buffer already on it. Of course, you can always change this later on in the marker, so you have complete flexibility in how you want to work.
For our next question, with my team all working from home now, we are sharing a lot of data back and forth, and sometimes I get sent the wrong file. Is it possible to get PDF pieces from an actual marker file, and are these as accurate as original pattern piece file?
Thanks, Sabrina. Another interesting question, but a great one. So yeah, you absolutely can do that. So if you receive a marker file and you need to actually save it out as a PDF, it's a pretty simple process to do. And just to get to the end of that question, it's going to be just as accurate as any regular PDF file. So to do that, what we're going to do is you're going to actually open up the marker, which I've done here. I'm going to go to the File menu and go to where we do our marker order, Open Style File. You'll see this has one pattern in it. A marker can have multiple patterns, so you'll just select the one that you're interested in. And we're going to right-click. This is also where we update markers, by the way, if you want to update from a pattern file. But from here, we're just going to hit Save Selected Style As, and then it will save the PDF file from that marker.
A lot of great questions today. We appreciate it. Make sure that when you see these posts, you're liking them and put some comments in there so that we see that everybody is liking what we're posting. And don't forget, send your questions to optitex.usa@efi.com. Josh, thanks again for the great content, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.